Hello and welcome to Matrix Live. Today my guest is Christian, and Christian, I think the best is for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, yeah. My name is Christian. I work on the bridges and bots general integrations team at EMS inside of Element. But today I'm here to present Matrix Wrench, which is more of a hobby project of mine, but still stems from the idea of developing bridges and handling bots.
Okay, so Matrix Wrench, it's something that is not entirely new. I can remember in some This Week in Matrix, I saw some news about it. So can you tell us what is Matrix Wrench? Who would use it, and why is it useful for?
Yeah, so at work I was developing and then also debugging a lot of bridges. And these usually have an access token, pretty much like every account. When you log in, you get an access token, and that allows you to perform actions inside of matrix rooms. For example, changing permissions, looking up who's in that room. And it was kind of difficult to do that for bridges because you couldn't just log in as the bridge in your Element web or Element desktop. And most of these things we did on the terminal, on the command line. And I was looking up the matrix spec pretty much every day and then decided, hey, that I could build like a UI specifically around this. That wasn't for participating in a room, but more for viewing it. And that's how first Matrix Navigator for like navigating through the rooms was born. And afterwards, then I was like, okay, but I now also want to tweak it. And that's when I renamed it to the current name of Matrix Wrench, kind of like a tool to modify, tweak matrix rooms.
All right, interesting. Yes, Matrix can be a little bit technical sometimes. It really shows that we are a bunch of engineers that came up with an idea and say, "Hey, let's put people on that thing, even if it's not entirely ready." Fortunately, it's more and more ready to welcome the users, and now people have been using it in production for a long time. But there used to be some rough edges, especially in the bridge land. So Matrix Wrench is a sort of UI that you use to automate some actions that you need to perform on the bridges to get a better user experience or to fix things user might have messed up. Do you have typical queries that you do all the times with Matrix Wrench?
Yeah, one of the things is definitely editing permission levels. When, like, as the maintainers of the Matrix org IRC bridges, we have the ability to look into these rooms on request and change permission levels if, for example, somebody lost access to the room, cannot moderate it, or is asking for tombstoning it to migrate it to a new room. If a migration had like an error and needs to be cleaned up, all of these tasks are something I would do now in Matrix Wrench, which before required me to fire like individual curl requests. And it's still that I would be performing like individual actions that relate to like a specific API call in Matrix Wrench. It doesn't do a lot of batching or unexpected things. It's more like UI and also tells you which fields are required, for example, for inviting somebody to a room or for changing permission levels.
All right. So maybe to give a little bit of context for people who are not too familiar with the matter, the bridge you have in mind, I believe, is the LiberaChat bridge, the one between the matrix.org home server, where a lot of people have an account, and LiberaChat, the very famous IRC network, where a lot of community have their channels. We have this concept of portal rooms, which is that when you try to join a room from the Matrix side, it's going to automatically join the channel on LiberaChat. And if you are the first person to do it, you're going to get privileges that maybe you should not have. But if you ever leave that room, the next person that is going to join it will see a room in a bit of a flaky state, and I think that's where you are performing the requests with Matrix Wrench to give the permissions to the new users, give back ownership of the room to the new users. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Whenever there's something we can automate, we'll try to make it part of the bridges. But whenever there's something we've overseen or that just hasn't been considered yet, Matrix Wrench is then the tool to fix these individual issues with rooms.
All right. So you started Matrix Wrench to as a utility to make your work faster and to make your work safer because you are less at risk of missing arguments in a command line if there is no command line, if there is a UI to tell you you need to do this thing and you forgot a parameter. Can we see it in action? Can we see what Matrix Wrench actually is?
Yes. Let me share my screen or the. So, here, if is it already sharing? I don't see it.
Yep.
Yeah, slowly building up. So this is the room for Matrix Wrench, where we talk about its development, and this is the room I would now be using for demoing how it works. So I'm grabbing the URL, or the Matrix room ID or alias. And before I edit myself as like an identity, I can give it a name so that I can recognize it. A home server address needs to be put in, and then I can either log in with an access token or a password. By default, it doesn't remember these after like a refresh. That's just because we use it with bridge access tokens, and those shouldn't be stored in like local storage. But I have already added my identity here, and just to check that I'm still logged in, I can check here which device I'm logged in as. It will also give me a network log of everything that happened. This will show an access token. By the time this Matrix Live goes public, this is invalid, of course. Um, So if I wanted to repeat this, I could copy paste this to the terminal, and then this curl should give me the same result of matrix ID and device ID. But to go into the room, I can now open like first resolve alias if I want to, but I could also just click on open details. And then for bridges, it's often important to know, am I even still a member or not? Yes, I'm still a join. That means I can perform actions. For example, look at the power levels and then query the power levels. And here's also, this is like an editor. I could change this. So there's a hook shot in here. And just for the purpose of demoing it, I'll now reduce its power level to 50, which relates to a moderator, and overwrite this. Ask me, do we really want to do this? Um, and you don't have permissions to remove ops levels equal to your own. Yeah, right. It's an administrator as I am. But these are usually the tasks that I would be doing, adapting power levels or other things in a room that I couldn't be opening with Element Web. It has moderation for inviting, kicking. It shows like a member list. Oh yeah, and one thing that it also is used for is bulk invite and bulk kick. So here are like you can put in user ID separated by spaces, new lines, commas, or semicolons, and just invite a bunch of people all at once, which I don't think any other client has.
All right. So the UI is looking a little bit bare bones at the moment, but it's really powerful. do you plan to add new features, or does it have already everything you need to do to automate your day job?
Yeah, it's looking very bare bones. That kind of like design would be the thing to look at next when I'm decided on which features it is going to have and what makes it feature complete. In terms of administrating rooms, it's already pretty feature complete. So I'm now thinking about asking designers or even hiring a designer for like short time for just giving it a revamp and like making it look nice. Um, but in terms of functionality, um, I would like the JSON editor to look a lot nicer. I would like it to automatically validate the JSON before it sends it off. I think there's little validation that it does right now. Maybe just checking if it's even JSON. Um, Error messages could look a lot nicer. I'm currently using like these general alerts. It's really a lot of the design that standard HTML in a browser gives you.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't hate the design because uh, first it looks very much like a hacker thing. Like, I've just put some things together and it works, so I really like that vibe. But also, while the UI is very bare bones, it also means that the code to produce that UI is also quite simple, and it tends to get more and more complicated as you add bells and whistles. So that's already something Wrench has for it. It's easy to extend it, it's easy to add new features, and when you're going to polish it, it's going to look a little better, but maybe it's going to be a bit more difficult to hack around it. So anyway, if I wanted to try Matrix Wrench on my own rooms, do you have a public instance I can play with?
Yes, there is matrix minus wrench dot chr dot de. Um, and it's also just a repository. Like it's all static. Like you could host it on a static HTML uh, HTTP host. Yeah.
Right.
Um, but yeah, in terms of iterating on it, there has been a feature that I worked on with a couple of other community members for the past 3 weeks, which allowed us to quickly iterate on a room list that has a couple of statistics, which I find to be pretty interesting. Um, there is this room list that fetches all of the rooms that I'm joined into, and it also then fetches names, the room version, which I can sort by to, for example, find the rooms that are still room version 1. I can find all of the spaces. This is still populating as more data is fetched. I can search for join rules or a number of members, which is pretty interesting to see. Like, hey, how many people are, or like, what's the room with the most amount of people that I'm going to. I'll make this a little bit wider. If I'm interested in some maybe security, I'm like, how many home servers currently have are joined currently? So have like here listed, but there's this weekend Matrix, which has 370 room servers based on the Matrix IDs of joint members. And I can also see that I have 15 people in there, which are also direct contacts of mine.
So in that context, direct contact is somebody you have a DM with.
Yes.
All right, pretty cool. So it's really insightful. You can have very useful statistics for your own account. not only for the bridges you master, but also for your own account. Is there something we forgot to talk about?
The same list that I have here for rooms also exists for direct contacts. I'm not going to show that because that would, yes,
It
contain a
would be
little
a
bit too much.
little privacy
Yeah.
invasive.
But that would show me the other way around of how many, like, which contacts do I have, and also how many rooms do I have with them. So I found out that on my work account, for example, Travis and Matthew are the people who I share the most rooms with, but it's followed by Halfshot with only one room less, and it's like 160 rooms or so.
They're everywhere. Okay, is there somewhere we can follow the development of Matrix Ranch? Do you have a public repository, a public Matrix room I can join to see what's happening and to discuss it?
There is a public Matrix room, which I don't know how to link. I'll give you the link.
Yeah, I'm
In
going to add it to the description of the video.
and also inside of the about page, but I think it's linked in several places. There's a gitlab.com repository where the source code is available.
All right, fantastic. Any final thoughts to conclude the episode?
Nope, that's it. That's pretty much all I wanted to say and show out.
All
Sorry about
right.
that.
In that case, thank you very much, Christian, and I see you around Matrix Live.